thank the gentlelady. Now recognize the gentleman from Nebraska, Mr. Bacon, for 5
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome here to Mr. Secretary. Appreciate you being here today. I have 2 questions, one on cybersecurity and then a follow-up on trade. First on cybersecurity, there was a recent article published in the Joint Forces Quarterly titled Weaponizing Wheat. It was written by Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Schuerman, and he assesses the security status of America's food supply, and his findings are disturbing. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to submit that for the record, this article.
Without objection.
In the article, Lieutenant Colonel Schuerman identifies agriculture cybersecurity as one of the most pressing threats to our agriculture. Russia is a top cyber adversary known for targeting cloud infrastructure, for example. We've had cyber attacks on industry leaders like JBS. We're seeing state-sponsored attacks have caused real-world effects targeting critical infrastructure like grain storage facilities. So, Mr. Secretary, I've been working on a bill for a couple of years called the American Agricultural Security Act of 2024, and establishes research centers that are American land-grant institutions across the nation with the purpose of researching physical, biological, and cyber threats to American agriculture. These centers would be structured and operated like the UARCs that we see used by the DoD, and they've shown a lot of promise with their military. So, Mr. Secretary, what's your take? Would this move us in the right direction for helping provide better cybersecurity, or what else could we be doing to protect our farmers?
Well, Representative, it will if it's adequately funded. It's not enough to set up a center unless you have the resources behind it. But I think you're right to put a spotlight on this, and certainly land-grant universities are already doing some of this, perhaps not as in coordinated a fashion as they need to. At USDA, we're really focused on making sure that the private sector is hardening their assets, hardening their IT against these kinds of attacks. Obviously, you mentioned JBS. When something like that happens, our role and responsibility is to evaluate the impact on the market of a disruption, a significant disruption, which we did in that case, and to convene the industry to remind them of the importance of investing in protection. There is an interagency effort in this administration to sort of focus on cybersecurity and on AI in particular, and taking a look at the entirety of our portfolio, from food safety to SNAP bias to market manipulation to trade policy. It's all encompassing.
You know, our DoD runs something similar with the UARCs, and it's been very successful, but you're right, they have to be funded. My second question is on trade. If I had to provide the #1 feedback or maybe criticism of the administration that I hear from Nebraska producers, and I believe it would be in your home state as well in Iowa, is we don't hear much from the administration on trade. In fact, I very seldom hear the president discussing trade at all. And just like Iowa, Nebraska is very dependent on beef, pork, corn, wheat, sorghum exports. So could you tell us what is the administration doing and hopefully clearing up the misperception, sure, if anything?
Well, first of all, it was mentioned by Representative Scott, the establishment of the Regional Ag Promotion Program. Nearly $1 billion being invested at the request of Senator Stabenow and Senator Bozeman, bipartisan request to invest in trade. Focusing on diversification of our market opportunity, we are over-reliant on our top 4 markets from an ag perspective, and so we want to put resources to increase our presence, our promotions, and our partnerships in a number of countries, particularly in Southeast Asia. Number one. Number two, I think sometimes it's, I think the focus people have when they define trade, they talk about it in terms of trade agreements. I mean, the reality is you don't have trade promotion authority, so it's very difficult to imagine a trade agreement being negotiated when the people we're negotiating with realize that there are 535 folks who can negotiate again. So without trade promotion authority, that's the issue. So in the meantime, we're working on trying to reduce barriers. And I can tell you that roughly $21 billion of trade opportunities have been created or maintained as a result of wins looking at reducing trade barriers. The UK in wood pellets and biomass, Canada in a clean fuel regulation, Mexico in potato access, Japan beef quota, higher blend ethanol availability, India preservation of apples, expanded cherry access, the Philippines expanded access to pork, China, almonds and almond hulls recently, Argentina, apples and pears, Israel, processed meat and eggs. There are a whole series of things that have occurred over the last 3 years. The cumulative impact and effect of them is to either to protect or to expand trade opportunities. So that's what we're up to. We're expanding trade missions and considering reverse trade missions where we bring people from other countries here in the U.S. So it's a combination of many things that don't necessarily get the headlines, but are particularly effective in terms of trade.
Thank you. As you know, the Iowa farmers and Nebraska farmers, we like to feed the world. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank the gentleman